request the panelists to come onto the stage. And before they talk, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves very, very briefly for saving some more time. Because I'm getting calls now from the organizers that we need to move forward very fast. So first of all, it's Nupur Tandon. Nupur, please come on. Let's give her a big hand. She is the founding director of Pro Waste Concepts. So when we start talking, I'll request you to speak for a minute about yourself before you present your subject, topic. Then we have Shri G.D. Yadav, Emeritus Professor of Eminence, ICT Mumbai. Please come, sir. Padmashri, welcome. Then we have Abhishek Jain. Abhishek, Director, Green Economy and Impact Innovations, Council on Energy, Environment and Water. Welcome. Now, what I'm going to request all the speakers is to keep your talk like bullet points, focused for the future, not what you have done in the past, but how it is relevant for the future and how it will benefit the rural community. So try to keep focus on that. Because the rural community of India is, of course, the biggest rural community in the world, more than any other continent, but just 897 million people is more than the population of the entire Western world. So if we are able to impact them in a sustainable fashion, you can understand the impact on the world. Templates for the world, leveraging technology for them, and also what the Western world always looks at, big market. So there's the biggest potential market for the world. So I will start with Nupur. I'm going to sit down there. Nupur, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Kapur sir. I am founder, director of Pro Waste Concepts Private Limited. And it's a social enterprise which works at the grassroots level with communities to implement waste management processes so that no waste is transported to the landfills. So our vision is, we can say, a future without landfills. And we are working towards it. Our tagline is a call to action. So we work with people to change their mindset towards waste and how they handle waste in their day-to-day lives.
Good afternoon. This panel discussion is already delayed. I am Professor G.D. Yadav. I'm a National Science Chair, Government of India.
Very good.
And also, I was conferred the Bhatnagar Fellowship just 2 days back by the CSIR.
Wow.
So I've been working in this area of net zero, green hydrogen, decarbonization, waste biomass to chemicals, materials, fuels, and of course, the so-called net negative technologies. So people are talking about net zero, but I talk about net negative. I had made several slides. I didn't know exactly the format, but I'm told that it is only 30 minutes time. So I can certainly enlighten you by some more facts. This is the introduction, is that much, is it?
That's it.
Oh, thank you.
Good.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Abhishek Jain. Started as a technologist, an IITian, but soon realized technology is not the panacea. So I work now on everything around technology to help bridge both social inequity as well as sustainability issues. A lot of focus on rural areas, so looking forward to the interaction.
Thank you so much. So I think we're going to go back to Nupur now. And do you have any slides, or are you going to be just speaking? Because if we speak and you look at it.
Have slides.
Okay, that's awesome. Over to you, Nupur. Please, your presentation in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure. So I took a conscious decision to work with institutions, organizations to help them to handle their waste, to work with youngsters so that they understand what waste was, and then only I think the future would be, greener and better. So the waste in India is a product. I would call it a product, which is like it's the end of the priority for any organization, institutions, and most of the budgets which a campus has or our municipality has is used to transport all waste material to the landfills in our country, and we have failed to to keep our country clean. Today morning we spoke about, how our country is one of the biggest economies, it is growing, and how we talk about AI, sustainability, big jargons, but we all know that we are some of the dirtiest, most polluted cities in our country. We know what our AQI levels is. We have failed to work at the grassroots level. We have failed to create a systemic approach, a systemic change, a holistic change where waste is handled efficiently, where all stakeholders come together and find a solution to this problem. By stakeholders, I would mean the policy makers. Most of us would have not gone through environmental laws, but it is very well written. And the second most important stakeholders would be the municipalities who have absolutely failed to handle waste efficiently in most of the cities. What they do is just transport waste, and the crores of rupees, the part of their budget is used for transportation. And another stakeholders is us, who are generating waste, and we don't care. We just want to, not change our consumption patterns, and we always pretend that this is not our problem. And of course, there is technology, which technologists are trying their best to address this big problem in our country. There is technology which just exists since many, many years. It can be recycling industry or biomethanization, and of course, a lot of new technologies are entering the market. A lot of entrepreneurs from IT or any other institutions are starting to address the issue of waste. They are, but the reality is that have we been able to change the ground level situation? Has AI helped to make our air cleaner, or has data helped, real-time data has helped to keep our streets clean or free from the waste dumps, which we are like, I think we've become very tolerant. I also say sometimes in our presentation that India is dirty because we Indians are very clean. So I would like to add on that, yes, technology is important. It has to be in tune with nature. We cannot work as a technology is just in silos, and it has to have aspects of social, cultural, and of course, ancient wisdom, which we always had in our country. And only then we'll be able to at least see a cleaner and a better cities in a society. And I think it is the people who are most important who can bring the change. And of course, it has to be complemented with right, appropriate technology to handle that.
Thank you so much, Nupur. Talking about ancient wisdom, I am reminded of the chapter on Prithvi Sukta in the Atharva Ved, which is like an ode to the earth, how we have to respect the environment, the ecology, the earth. So that is like a visionary statement from thousands of years back for all that we are attempting to do today and tomorrow for the environment. So with that, I'll request Professor Yadav now to take over and make his presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to give you some startling statistics on environment. just before the pandemic began, in January 2020, the CO2 concentration was 410 ppm. And you know that during that entire year, we hardly had any economic activity, but still in January 2021, it rose to 412 ppm. Today, in June 2022, the economic activity was totally restored. That time, the concentration was 418 ppm. Today, it is 427 ppm. So what is responsible for this greenhouse gas? It is this carbon dioxide. So I say carbon dioxide should be taken as a feedstock to make chemicals, materials, polymers, etc., rather than taking that as a liability. So we need to develop technologies to take carbon dioxide. So we can convert carbon dioxide to methane, LPG, methanol, dimethyl ether, name it. That is a very important source. So that was, we require hydrogen. That is green hydrogen, water splitting. Another important issue is that by 2050, we will not be left with any crude oil. So what are you going to do for our survival? So that is where we will be using biomass, waste plastic, and whatever you think of as the feedstock. We convert that into hydrocarbons, and that is what we will be doing. So very interestingly, last year, in the year 2023, we emitted 40.6 gigatons, billion tons of carbon dioxide across the world. Last year, 2024, it was 41.6 gigatons. That means our carbon dioxide concentration was going up. And it is predicted by the World Meteorological Organization that by 2027, our targeted goal of 1.5 degrees C will be overshot. So what are we going to do? We have to develop technology for decarbonization, taking carbon out of the economy. We require carbon in the soil. We require carbon for our survival, but we don't require too much carbon in the atmosphere. That is the mantra. So quite interestingly, another important thing, because he was talking about farmers and all, 100 million metric tons of agri-waste is burned by the farmers. And you cannot go to Delhi these days. It is all, I don't know, air quality index 500 plus, PM 2.5 very high, so we can't land there. Instead of giving freebies to the farmers, ask them to collect this agri-waste, condense it, pelletize it, and take to the nearby place where it can be chemically, biologically, or any other means converted into value-added products, chemicals, materials. So farmer can benefit by that. So for instance, if you have cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin, normally lignin is burned as a cogen. Most of the sugar factories do that. It's the wrong policy. Lignin is a very good source of making chemicals, fuels, materials. C5, C6, cellulose, hemicellulose, I can create a lot of sugars. Jokingly, I say farmers need not go sugarcane because it is a highly water-intensive crop. I can make sugars from hemicellulose. So there are technologies which we have been working in many of these areas. I believe we have to tell the farmers, I will give you 5 rupees incentive, bring this back to you. So pollution in Delhi and all around, that will be taken care of. But it is a political problem. Another important thing is plastic ban is a stupid idea. I'm telling you that because I'm telling it with authority. Plastic saved us during this pandemic, COVID. Why the plastic pollution? Because it is free. Anything given free is never appreciated. You go to any marriage party, you take a lot of food, it looks attractive, and because it is free, you dump it. 50% of municipal solid waste is food and other particles, carbon. 10 to 12% is plastic. If there was a deposit, for example, on the plastic bottle, they say 20 or 30 rupees, these bottles will disappear within no time once we leave this hall. Because it will be encouraged to return it. And segregation takes 80% of the funds in MSW to segregate this plastic. So that is where hydrogen plays a very important role. So water splitting. So if you are water splitting, you generate hydrogen and oxygen, Both of these things are important for converting waste biomass, waste plastic into variety of chemicals and materials. For example, hydrogenation of waste plastic, all sorts of plastic, whether it is nylon, or polythene bags, or anything else, or PVC, that when we convert it into hydrocarbons. And the remaining technologies, whether it is HCl, ammonia, H2S, these are known to petroleum industry, petrochemical industry. So I think it is wrong to give anything free to farmers. They should be encouraged to recycle this thing, that public should be encouraged. Just today's headline, 50 kilo of plastic was seized somewhere and the fellow was fined. Although plastic is banned, everywhere you will find plastic. And why? Because it is dirt cheap. Thinner and thinner, stronger and stronger. So the Bhayaji gives us more plastic bags than you require. So I think if there is a barcode and recyclability is encouraged, people will recycle it. Like housewives never throw the newspaper as a waste. In fact, the raddi is more valuable than the content in it. They get a lot of money. So if another person comes to your home and collects waste plastic and returns your money, maybe he gives 5% commission, you will save the environment. This is what the government is missing. Another idea. We are talking about bioethanol. We also do a lot of work. The government's policy to mix bioethanol in the fuel is good for short term because you can reduce the import. But at the same time, bioethanol is a very good feedstock to make 11 different bulk chemicals and 19 different special chemicals. It will fetch you more. That is what should be the policy. Maybe government of India should do it by 2035. Make bioethanol, but farmers can benefit by that rather than burning it as a fuel. So my contention is that no carbon should be there in the fuel. It will be solar, wind, and hydrogen. Hydrogen will be the savior. I call this as the new trinity. Hydrogen is the savior because hydrogen can be used for converting any carbonious material into chemicals, fuels, and other things. So net zero is not the solution. Net negative is the solution. And that is what we have to emphasize. We have to emphasize net negative. And we can do it the nature's way. And another thing people talk about, they blame, they say, okay, I will have, for example, pesticides should not be used, that should not be used. Why you are banning that? Because you think it is killing the biospecies. Our farmers, now we are talking about drone technology. Why don't you teach them drone technology where precise amount of the pesticide or fertilizer for that matter is sprayed and it goes to there, rather than the farmer wants to see the bug dead on the spot. He doesn't want to wait for 2 days. He says, unless the bug dies, my pesticide is not effective. And so all spurious kinds of pesticides are there in the market. So I think we have to relook at our policy. Policy will make the whole difference. We have decided to reduce our carbon dioxide concentration in India per se because I'm a member of some of these committees. I chair the hydrogen committee. So I'm telling you that 45% carbon dioxide we want to reduce by 2030. We want to have 500 gigawatt of energy. My contention is that make it 900 gigawatts. Let us be energy producing country, exporting green energy rather than importing crude oil. By that, we can earn a lot of foreign exchange and we will benefit. For that, industry must be given incentive. In our country, sometimes these overzealous people, politicians be that, and also journalists, they will call the industrialist a chore. What nonsense. Which country calls their industrialist a chore? Only in India it is done. If the industries are not there, there cannot be any progress. People should know that. This is a very important message. We must respect your industrialists because they can generate primary, secondary, tertiary, ultimately panwala will be there, right? Or somebody will be there. So these kind of things will be generated provided we support our industries. And so, United States, what they have done, green hydrogen, 1-1-1 policy, 1 kilo hydrogen in $1 in 1 decade. By 2031, US Department of Energy says we will have that policy. They are giving $3 incentive. That means the cost of green hydrogen is not less than $7, $8. What is our country doing? So I was talking about this in many of my lectures. I said our Ministry of Power should also give incentive. Of course, they are saying 50 rupees, 40 rupees. No, I think it should be more than that. If we give incentive to our industries, we will earn more money. In fact, Germany is saying they need 10 million tons. And also, same is the case with Nordic countries, Australia, Netherlands, they want hydrogen. Why we should not encourage hydrogen? Why we should not encourage in green energy? One of the problems in this green energy, solar energy, Ram mentioned something. In the year 2000, we started this solar energy and wind energy. Their life is 20 to 24 years. Now, so many million tons of this material is available, whether it's aluminum, steel, rare earths, name it. Why not recycle them? So chemical engineering will have a great future. Chemical engineering will be called recycle engineering. Chemical engineering is what ultimately? I'm a chemical engineer. What it will be? It will be physical rate processes, biological processes, chemical rate processes, including nuclear. And our job is to increase the rate and reduce the volume, reduce waste, process intensification. So chemical engineering, by definition, is sustainability engineering. To conclude, what I want to tell you that hydrogen is going to be the savior of this world. Right. Our policy should be that we encourage our government. And remember, the so-called 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature, our CO2 emissions in the atmosphere should be less than 10 gigatons, 10 billion tons. Then only it is 1.5 degrees. Right now it is 41.6. That means you have to take out so much of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
Thank you.
I will be very happy to answer any question.
Thank you, Professor Yadav. That was absolutely wonderful. So it reminds me of an article I read some time back that out of the 20 most polluted cities in the world, guess how many were from India? 13. You said 16, you were not far off the mark. And the top 3, number 1, number 2, number 3, most polluted cities in the world in India. So anyway, and you mentioned about pollution and you raised very interesting questions about waste. Those are all very important points to ponder. I also want to mention to you very briefly, Professor Yadav, when you talk about, agriculture, there's also one organization which is called Sajivan Foundation. Their president and founder is here. We should have a talk separately because they have come across a very, very brilliant template of you taking all the weeds in the villages which are occupying and taking over the fields, Lantana Camera and Julie Flora and others, and converting into organic fertilizer. So you don't have the chemical fertilizer, you're giving land back to the farmers, you're reclaiming it, and you're creating a lot of value and you're getting a lot of carbon credits for that. So they are very important partners with Wheels now. We have initiated a big project in the Aravali district in North Gujarat with them. We'll be expanding the footprint much more. So there are many multiple benefits, but that we'll get in separately offline when we meet with the Mr. Sandeep Sabharwal, who's here with us. So now I'm going to also request our friend, Abhishek Jain from IIT to address us for a few minutes, very quickly. And after that, I'm going to request everybody to just come in with 1 minute of your vision statement in a few words, less than a minute, a few seconds. So, over to Abhishek.
I think the first thing I wanted to draw our attention to, this whole idea of, there are 3 phrases that I caught from the title: can, technology, and nature-friendly. So I'm going to dwell on these 3 a little bit. Can, yes, but is it always? By no means it is a yes. We often struggle with the trade-offs where there is environment at one side, there is convenience at other side, there is affordability or economics at other side. And economics, mind you, in the current rules of the game, if you start pricing in externality, as someone else was saying earlier, you would change the rules of the game. If you start pricing that plastic sheet at 40 rupees instead of 40 paisa, you would change the rules of the game. So that's the can part and the trade-off part around it. But the nature-friendly, I think we need to unpack this nature. Many times we take the siloed approach within nature. We are right now obsessed with climate change as the problem when it comes to environment. But there are 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries that we are breaching. Whether it is the nitrogen and phosphorus cycle, whether it is the unknown new materials that we have introduced into the environment, whether it is the freshwater cycle and so on, and the biodiversity loss as well. So the moment you siloed out one particular environmental issue and start solving for it, we only solve as technologists in a reductionist fashion. We'll get the carbon problem solved, but we'll not have the biodiversity and pollinators to actually grow our food. We'll get the climate problem solved, but we'll not have water to actually drink. So unless we start realizing that these are systemic issues and there are trade-offs between them, only a tunnel vision to solve climate is not going to help. And within climate, we have another tunnel vision. We are obsessed with only green energy and energy transition. We think all the emissions are coming from burning energy and fossil fuels, so let's just change the source of energy and our problem will be solved. But we never ask the question, where is that energy actually going? Just to give you one example, 2 commodities, which are the most energy-guzzling and emissions-guzzling commodities in the world, is cement and steel. Half of the industrial emission globally are just because of these 2 commodities. Our answer to solving for cement and steel emissions is change the fuel to green hydrogen and still use the same cement and steel the way we construct our infrastructure, our buildings, and so on. Why not ask the question, can I change the material? Can I change the building design so that I need far less material? Can I change the design of the urban infrastructure environment so that I need far less built environment? A building like this has very low utilization. It is hardly getting used in the night hours. And there are many places which are only getting used in the night, like hotels and so on, and have no use in the day. Can we reimagine our building spaces, built environment, so that they have far more utilization and we have far less built environment in all? So asking these questions, I think even engineers, innovators are not getting the right signals from the intelligentsia, from the knowledge economy, that we need to innovate beyond just the green energy. We need to innovate differently in terms of design of the products and services, differently in terms of the material choices that we are doing. And then, even if you bring up with new technology, you need to skill people to actually be able to work with these new technologies. In India, one study cites that there is a shortage of 40 million green construction workers. So you can come up with new materials, but unless you're able to skill them, you'll not be seeing them adopted mainstream. If your masons are only going to use bricks and concrete, you're not going to change the way buildings are getting developed. Yet another thing that I want to like to highlight is that technology needs to come along with these other elements, be it skilling, be it end-user financing to adopt the technology. I run one of the programs where we have been supporting many entrepreneurs who are coming up with green technologies for rural areas, be it solar dryers, waste biomass-powered cold storages, vertical hydroponics-based fodder growing stations, and many other, almost 25 out of them that we have been supporting. And you realize that technology is great. Sometimes affordability is a challenge, but the same end user cannot afford the technology, so you're bringing in end user finance. So you need to solve the financing piece. If you have not trained the person to use the technology well, it remains standard. So you've created a green technology, but it is actually standard. So there are still resources going into it, but not getting used. So unless you solve all that other pieces of the ecosystem, whether it is policy, whether it is finance, whether it is skilling, whether it is market linkage for the ultimate end product, we're not going to solve this problem. And I think the one piece that you said when it comes to rural areas, we often actually think of them only as market. And I think that's the problem. Right now, rural India is what is driving the growth, economic growth of this country through the demand that it is creating. One back of the envelope estimate that I did about a year ago now, there is a 20 lakh crore worth of market only for 20 commodities that are being consumed in rural areas, including paints, cement, FMCG products, and so on and so forth. And a lot of that is not actually things which the rural area cannot produce for itself. All of these things can be produced. I mean, I have seen Ashirwad atta, packaged atta in the rural shops now. All that raw material is actually coming from the rural areas at the first place. And there is no fun in creating long loops of the same material moving to the urban center, getting processed, and coming back to the rural area. And then we say, how can I solve the transport problem and the emissions of the transport? If you'll only think of EV as a transport problem to be solved, then we're not going to solve this system-level problem that we are looking at. So technology innovation is important, but I think we need to focus a lot more on systems-level innovation. The moment we redefine the problem, we start really looking at answers in different parts of the world rather than saying, okay, I just need to solve the energy silo. And if any of you would have, I think many of us as engineers would have come across control systems as a subject when we were doing our engineering. Just use some of those feedback loops of the control system into the real world, and the system is called system dynamics or systems thinking. I would urge you all to do read an essay of Domela Meadows, which talks about how to think in systems. I think as technologists, often we also become reductionist. We do really think of that very siloed, small problem that I need to solve. I improve the energy efficiency and things are great, without realizing what that energy was needed at the first place for.
Thank you.
So yeah, so let me stop there.
Thank you so much, Abhishek Jain. A big round of applause. So, such a pleasure to listen to you, Abhishek. Such a lot of wisdom at this young age, and I'm sure you'll, impact the world in a very significant manner, at least the rural population also. And it just brings to my mind about how the public policy landscape is slowly changing in India, in the sense that when I joined the Foreign Service in '79, we as IAS or IFS or civil servants, there was a big, massive barrier between us and any outside world in terms of their capacity to approach us or their capacity to get information or their capacity to contribute to policy. So public administration was mixed up completely with public policy. And we thought that whatever we wrote was the most brilliant piece of paper. When I went to US to teach at the University of Maryland, College Park in the School of Public Policy, I suddenly realized how important it is to the formulation of policy. And since then, I have been trying to contribute to this thought that it is very essential for the government also to create a whole ecosystem of public policy in this country, also by creating jobs for the graduates who want to go to public policy. So how do we do that is another big question which has to be answered. So now back to you, Nupur, to give your contribution for in less than a minute, because we are way behind time, as we can see on this clock also.
So as I said, our vision of our pro-waste concepts is a future without landfills. So what has to be done at the ground level to achieve that vision? So I dream that the bridge or the gaps, how do we fill those gaps between the technology and the research which is happening in academy, and how does that penetrate at the ground level? We have a lot of research papers on waste, but how do we implement that at the root level, maybe in the rural areas or even in the campuses, so that the people actually practice what they have learned. There's a huge gap there. There's a huge gap where the policies or the rules which are mentioned and it is not being followed in the real day-to-day lives, when we are segregating waste at source, or we are collecting waste, or we are, we are doing our waste disposal for all categories of waste. So I also always question people that, do we know where our waste is going? It is all ending up in the landfills. And then we have now a lot of research and technology which is talking about, bio-remediation of the landfills. So can we have systems, can we have infrastructure at the ground level that our waste is not transported to the landfills and all our waste is converted into the resource? And then only we can achieve actually a greener and living spaces in our country.
Thank you.
And we'll be getting rid of the waste piles.
Thank you, Nupur. Over to Professor Yadav.
Thank you.
Yeah, big
Thank
round
you.
of applause.
You know, I just want to tell you something. I've been working in this area of generation of green hydrogen by water splitting, and I claim I got several patents, international patents, where we claim that for 100 tons a day, we can produce hydrogen at less than $1. So some pilot experiments are going. 4 companies are working with me for methanol, dimethyl ether, methane, and also hydrogen. That is one part of the story. So far as India is concerned, we should be carbon-free energy using country. So that means solar, wind, geothermal, nuclear, and hydrogen. World as a whole, by 2050, will require almost 840 million metric tons of hydrogen. And if you look at the energy scenario, 49,000 terawatt hours. Of that, India should aim for 10,000 terawatt hours and be exporters of energy so that we will win it. Another thing, just yesterday, Prime Minister was talking about this green fuel, and we should be having green cars and electric cars, EV. If the energy comes from coal-driven power plants, it is CV, it is not EV. You may be using electric drive, but the electricity has to be produced and it has to be renewable. So coal, and we will be still using coal by 2050. So this is one important thing we should know. We may not have pollution in the city, but somewhere else it is. There's a system engineering, okay? So we must develop systems, energy efficient systems, carbon free, and all carbon should be used for creation of chemicals, materials, polymers, etc. That is what I'm saying.
Thank you very much.
And ethanol should be used for some time because we can reduce the import duty. We spend a lot of money on that. And that should be used for making chemicals.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
That's what I'm saying.
Abhishek?
I would say 3 quick things. One, think in the terms of systems. And a good question to ask typically is that, what trade-offs am I making? Who is actually losing in the choice that I'm making? Or where am I losing in the choice that I'm making? Second, whenever you think of scaling up, like as entrepreneurs, we often like to scale up our solutions. Do think of the context. We often ignore the context as we scale up a solution. We think something is working great here, let me scale it up to the entire country. That doesn't necessarily work well unless you are actually contextualizing it to the context. And third, I would say it's tempting to solve the tail end problems. Waste is getting generated here, let me solve for the waste stream, and what can I do in terms of value add, et cetera, et cetera. But it's actually far more higher leverage in the system if you actually start solving it at the design stage itself, like how the products and services are getting designed so that we generate less waste at the first place.
Thank you.
Those are 3 things.
A big round of applause to our panelists. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next part of the program now. Shri Praful Kulkarni, request you to come up to the stage quickly. Welcome. So nice to see you. Kulkarni is the next star speaker for us. He is the CEO of GKK Works and Canon Design. So we have just about 10 minutes. Yes. You want to sit here? Come. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.